guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tina and we're going to do another In My True Crime Get Ready With Me series. Please be aware there will be graphic content. If you do like true crime, keep watching because this is a very interesting murder. I don't know how many of you have heard of Winnie Ruth Judd and the trunk murders of 1931 in Arizona. It was grisly. I'm going to prime my face with my Thank Me Later primer from Elizabeth Mott. Winnie Ruth Judd. She was a medical secretary in Arizona. How the murder was discovered: she got on a train and went to LA in California, and when she got off the train and went to collect her baggage, they would not turn it over to her because it was seeping blood, which at the time they thought maybe it was deer blood or something, and so they demanded that she open the trunk. She said, "Oh, my husband's got the key. I'll go get him," and left. Promptly disappeared. They opened the trunks and oh my gosh, inside the trunk is a dismembered body of Hedvig Samuelson and the full body of Agnes Leroy. Needless to say, the manhunt was on to find this woman who had these trunks. She turns herself in 5 days later in a stolen fur coat in front of a funeral parlor. The girl liked drama. This is the new Maughan Conceal and Perfect. It is a little bit light for me, so I'm also going to use a little bit of Wet n Wild. She's standing there in her fur coat. The cameras are flashing, and they find a confession letter that she had torn up and attempted to flush down the drain, not destroyed. That was her first confession. They don't keep count of the confessions because there's a few. In that, she says that there was an altercation over a man that they had all been seeing, Happy Jack Halloran, a huge moneymaker guy in Arizona at the time. Some consensus is, oh my God, we got to cover that up. And they, immediately do so to try to keep him out of it. This particular case, I've been researching it for a while now. I watched it on Deadliest Women. My opinions of it have changed dramatically with my own research. So what happens is they go to the house, there's nothing there. The mattresses have been removed, there's signs of a scuffle, but there's no anything. This is the Wet n Wild concealer. They proceed to sell tickets to this crime scene for 10 cents a piece. Thousands of people walk through it. Okay, so that's probably not so good. And she's in there and she's in jail and they're saying, what happened? I shot them in self-defense, but I didn't chop up the bodies. Well, who did that? A doctor. Out of concern for the families of the victims, I will not be showing all of the pictures that I have found. You will find links below if you want to see them. Be prepared. What I show on this channel can be horrific. What is in those pictures, they're the actual autopsy pictures. So the theory is a doctor did it, or that's what she tells them. I can tell you no doctor on the planet would have done this, and even in the interview, the police say, why were there hesitation marks? No doctor would have chopped her up that way. So then she says that Jack Halloran did it. I don't know about you, but if I'm a rich businessman, I don't care when this is, I'm not going to have some hysterical woman stick her on a plane with some rotting corpses that are at this point days old and ship her across the country. I'm not going to do it. But she insisted at first that, it was his idea to do this. Crazy idea, right? Then the court case happens. And this, by all accounts, is a case for the books. So in the first one, well, not the first case, but the first lawyers, they said, she did it, but we think she might have had help. And they think she might have had help because she had an injury on her hand where a bullet had went through. And this is a very small woman. She's only 5'2", weighs 100 and some pounds. She's very thin in all of the pictures from that time. Okay, I just got this from Too Faced and we're gonna break into it. This is their mystery bag. We got lipstick, or mascara, eyeliner, more mascara. Yay, I was hoping to get this, the peanut butter and jelly palette. So we're gonna use the peanut butter and jelly palette, and I'm just gonna use the base shade in here. I'm gonna put down some powder on my under eyes to keep them from creasing. And she's in court, and she keeps unwrapping her bandage and showing her hand and stuff. The police and the prosecution surmise she shot herself. That the bullet was found in the bathroom, and so therefore she probably shot herself, dismembered the bodies, dragged the mattress out, tried to burn it, didn't succeed. They found the mattress. There's bullet marks in the mattress and blood stains on the mattress. So her claim of self-defense to any prosecution is going to come across as complete bullshit. Her defense team says, no, you're not taking the stand. And they didn't call witnesses that she said they should have called. So for a long time afterwards, she really took issue with that court case. I don't know. I'm not a defense attorney. They plead her as being insane. So I'm just taking peanut butter, which is a really pretty shade, and putting that in my outer corner. She claims for years afterwards, including the only TV interview she did in 1969, that she wanted to take the stand and should have been allowed to take the stand. The thing is, when she did take the stand in another proceeding, it was a disaster. She was a horrible witness. Because eventually what happens is she goes to jail, they sentence her to hang. They find her guilty of first-degree murder. They think she has an accomplice, they want her to talk, so they sentence her to hang. 48 hours before she's to hang, the sheriff, he says, I think she's crazy, I don't think she should hang. Sends her off for a mental exam. The mental exam comes back and says, yeah, she's crazy, she can't be hanged. There is a lot of speculation. There were backroom deals that were done to get her off. So now I'm going to take Nuts About You, which is this really pretty reddish brown color, and I'm going to sort of start building my way in. So he says, no, she's crazy, we can't hang her. So they don't hang her. And she goes away to a mental hospital where everything afterwards that she says is suspect. And in multiple confessions, some confessions she says that Jack Halloran was involved. The one that she did to get herself into the mental institution, she says he wasn't. She called him afterwards. She did this, she did that. At one point, they actually tried Jack Halloran for accessory after the fact. This is my brow gal pencil. Love this pencil. They take him to trial. They actually try him for accessory to murder at this point. His attorney is no slouch. Puts Winnie on the stand. Winnie goes insane. By all accounts, she was not a good witness. She's screaming, she's crying, she's hollering, she's talking about the whole fight with her friends and how that happened, and she loses her mind, and his attorney stands up and says, Judge, look at this poor woman. She obviously acted in self-defense. If there's no crime, how can my client be guilty of anything? The judge agrees and lets Jack Halloran off. He's now out of it. He goes off and ends up actually kind of almost going bankrupt and dies like 9 years later. I don't know how much he was involved. He certainly was messing around with her. She was a married woman, and at that time, you know, messing around with married women isn't such a good thing, but this was Arizona in the 30s, and they had something called summer bachelors. Now let's fast forward. So in 1969, she does an interview. I've watched it. I couldn't tell you if she's telling the truth or not. Frankly, I think there may be something to the fact that she's crazy. She does have TB. She potentially is mentally ill. What I can tell you is she escaped from this mental institution 7 times, or 6 times. 6 times, 1 time for 7 years. Yeah, you heard that right. 7 years. She, according to the author of a book about her, had the key to the front door. They get her back the last time, they lock her up again. She keeps filing appeals and pardons and stuff, and eventually they let her out of this mental institution, put her on parole, and then dies in 1998. So by all accounts and by a book that was written at that time, Jack Halloran was involved. He hired a doctor, chopped up the bodies, put them in the trunk for her, was supposed to give her money to get off the train and take the trunks to the ocean and throw them in. Lots of people agree with this story, right? So I'm going to take my Tarte blush. She dies, and a few years later turns over all his records including a confession letter that Winnie had written him in 1939. So after her conviction, this was her next attorney who she trusted. She wrote this letter, which was a full-on confession to what happened that night. After reading all of the confession letters, which are holy crap a mess, and looking at everything, I believe this confession letter is accurate. One of the things people keep saying, the reason that she was found guilty and shouldn't have been, was that there was 2 different size calibers weapons used. They say that a 25 was used, one victim, and then a 22 was another one. If you go and look at the Historical Society, where they actually have the tags and the evidence still intact in envelopes, they are tagged correctly. That misprint happened in a newspaper. It did not happen in a court case. It did not happen with the evidence. All the bullets were the same size. Theory number 1, that 2 weapons were used right off the bat, is dead. In the confession letter that she writes to her attorney, an attorney that did his best to get her off, she writes what I think is the true account. What she says, because all of these women were sleeping with the same guy, and she had picked out another woman who gave him syphilis that he was sleeping with also. Whole lot of jealousy going on. Okay, so I'm going to use jelly all over my lid. The fact is, there was 1 weapon used, and in this confession letter, she says that she went over to her friend's house and she hid out in a room. In old houses, you know, they have the front parlor, so she was hiding out in the front parlor. She was asleep on the couch. She wasn't feeling well. She's suffering from TB. And she's got this gun, and she's so mad at Anne. She's mad at her, and she wants revenge. Anne has been making fun of her. Anne has been taunting her. So she waits all through the night. She gets up, and she sneaks down the hall, and she goes into Anne's room, and she shoots her while she's sleeping. The evidence so far that we know of backs that up. There was in fact a mattress found. There was a bullet mark found in said mattress. She comes out, her friend Sammy is standing there going, "What just happened?" She's got a gun in her hand. Sammy takes the gun away from her. Winnie turns around and stabs her with a knife twice and bends it like in a circle. They found this knife. It was in the trunk with her body. She struggles with the gun with her, and the gun goes off and it shoots her somewhere. She says in this letter she doesn't remember. All right, so I'm going to take bananas, this gold color, and I'm going to put that in my inner corner some. So she says that she struggles with Sammy Hedvig, and the gun goes off and shoots her friend on accident. She wasn't really trying to kill her, but that doesn't make any sense because she just tried to stab her. And all evidence backs that up. Well, then she freaks out. She's injured, so she goes and she lays down. The next day, she gets up and her friends are dead and they're stiff and she can't move them. She tugs and pulls and gets her friend into the bathroom, puts her in the bathtub because only Anne would fit in the big steam trunk. Well, while doing this, she also decides the gun has to be cleaned. So she puts the gun in the sink, is washing it. The gun goes off, ricochets off the porcelain, and gets wedged in her hand. From everything I've seen and all of the evidence, I think this confession of hers is the closest to the truth. I think she's guilty as hell. I think she tried to get Jack to fund her defense, which ended up being funded by the Hearst or newspaper people because they made so much money off her trial. So I'm just taking a little bit of jelly, sticking that in the center of my under eye right here. I think she was jealous because Anne was young and beautiful and she was married, still beautiful, but married. And at that time, you know, messing around on your spouse wasn't exactly the thing you were supposed to be doing. The idea that she didn't do it is super far-fetched. Okay, so I have very pink lipstick. This is in Bubble Bubble. This wand on this queen size mascara is freaking huge, almost unusable. I'm gonna take some contour out of my Pro Kit and just contour my jawline. And I understand that as much as a few years ago, we didn't have the information we have now. And I would also like to say that the author who wrote that book developed a very personal friendship with Winnie Ruth Judd. I think her emotions have skewed her objectivity in this case. I've listened to actual taped interviews with the officers that were at the scene and interviewed her, what they saw at the time, and then reading the newspapers, which are super sensationalized and didn't do me a lot of good, actually. I think her confession to her attorney, couldn't tell anybody. This is like 80 years later that this confession came out. I think it's accurate. I think it's pretty much everything that happened. I also personally think this is a very manipulative woman. I think anybody who steals a fur coat to be photographed in when she turned herself in is a very manipulative person. And she knew that that could potentially help get her off. All right, I'm changing out this lipstick color. I don't like bright pink. So if you've seen this murder on like Deadliest Women, the Mysteries at the Museum did a piece on it. Most of those are actually based on the book that was written by the author who became Winnie Ruth Judd's best friend. That right there tells me a whole lot about Winnie Ruth Judd. As somebody who studied aberrant criminal behavior, that is the type of thing you look for. Is somebody who manipulates people and brings them in and gets them on their side to get them what they want. When I watched the hearing with her, where she, after her escape in the 1960s, she's there with her attorney. I don't know how the hell they let her out of the mental institution. She was incoherent. Her accounting of like the straight facts of the event were very few. And any time that she was asked to give specific details, she avoided them. Every single one. She answered the questions she wanted to, but if she didn't, she would divert the question to something else. It irritated the heck out of me so badly, because one of the things that really is bothering me in this case, like I said, I did a lot of research. The victim, Sammy, or Hedvig Samuelson's great-grandniece, because she had seen the book when she was growing up, and it made a huge impact on her. So she wanted to discover who her aunt was and turn her into more than a victim. 1930s, she's in Alaska. She's a school teacher. She has tuberculosis. She travels all the way down in Arizona and then befriends these other women. And by no account anywhere, she never did anything to deserve this. All she did was try to protect a friend. I won't be putting up pictures of her dismembered body. Agnes Ann Leroy was a nurse, and a beautiful nurse. So let me know what you guys think of this particular murder and these get ready with me's. I realize that putting on makeup while talking about murder can seem uncaring, and I'm concerned about that, and I don't want anybody to think that. That is why we are going to be doing these sections with the victims. Like, subscribe, and share. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!